Winston and the Beard. Hello again. We finished in Yellowstone, so I'll pick it up from Yellowstone. I'm not going to talk an awful lot about Yellowstone. I made a hell of a lot of videos about it whilst I was there. It was not my favourite park by a long way. I'm still partly in awe of what they do and also what they have to contend with. It's a massive park, and they do some very interesting and positive stuff, but also I think the kind of Disneyland approach to the experience that you get there, unfortunately, I wouldn't say ruined it for me, but it was a very different experience from a lot of the other parks, and it certainly wasn't my favourite. So Yellowstone's here. I won't talk too much about it, but it borders Montana, mostly is in Wyoming, and I'm sure Idaho must claim a little bit of the land down in this area as well. South of Yellowstone, however, is Grand Teton, and you literally drive out of Yellowstone and straight into Grand Teton. If you come out of the south entrance, there's nowhere else to go. You have to go into Teton. If you've come from Yellowstone, you don't get charged to go into Teton. I don't know if it's on the same ticket or how that works, but I wasn't charged coming into here. You can't even see it on the map, but there are lakes along Grand Teton. Jenny and I think Jackson, two of the main ones. There's moose at the bottom end of the park, which is very it's like a very tiny old town. That's not changed much. It's very small. There's only I think one pub, restaurant place, one tiny little grocery store, and a couple of outdoor clothing places. The Teton Visitor Centre was, again, rather large. This is where I think a lot of the parks have updated, I think is probably the best word, in line with Yellowstone. Yellowstone was extremely commercial, to a negative point, unfortunately, for me anyway. It's gone too far in terms of trying to cater for too many. Rather a bold statement, but I genuinely think that's what it's done. The amount of tourists that go there there's too many of them, I think. You know, when you start shipping in tourists on tour buses, just driving them around, dropping them off to buy knickknacks and take photos, I think that kind of is an unfortunate Disneyland experience of what a park should be about. Anyway, I won't rant about that, but I think some of the other parks have benefited from updates of their visitor centres, and they've now got much larger visitor centres. I'm not sure whether to cater for a lot more visitors or whether it's just because they have a budget and they have to spend it. You know, the things, the information, sometimes a lot of information, especially if there's quite a lot of controversial history about the park. A lot of the information needs to be in the visitor centres, and it needs to be in one place. So the visitor centres do need to be an important part of the park. It's nice when I see the visitor centres on the outskirts of the park, right near the edges, or indeed outside the park before you go in. Teton was very much like that. The ethos that you get and the feeling you get when you're in Teton is very in tune with the nature and the wildlife and the landscape. Teton's also, I think, one of the only parks, if not the only park, with an airport. And even as you're driving through the valley, the airport isn't all that obvious. The visitor centre you can't see either. It's almost built down in the valley at a much lower level. The trees around it are deliberately have been left so that you can't see it. So Teton for me was a very peaceful, relaxing, quiet, subdued, and understated park, which is ironic because it's right next to Yellowstone, and most people that go to Yellowstone I think go through Grand Teton. I hope they have a completely different experience in either one, because I did. The mountains in Teton were just incredible. They are literally right in front of you. You almost can walk up to them, and then they just shoot straight up out of the ground. Did a few videos there, so hopefully you got a gist of that. But anyway, Teton, Grand Teton National Park was extremely impressive, and I thought the way that they managed the park and put everything together was pretty smart. It was good. Camped outside the park on the east side of it a couple of times. Back roads, logging roads, a couple of campsites where there wasn't anybody there because it was still too soon in the season. I'm going to try and get all the way to Colorado now in one video. So down through Wyoming, jumped into Idaho. Didn't spend any time in Idaho apart from just this quick drive through, and I won't be going back to Idaho. I'd be very surprised if I do. But pretty little route, this scenic route towards Bear Lake. Bear Lake was huge. Very pretty scenery down there. It was named by trappers again. A lot of things were named by trappers because they were the first almost Western people to interact and trade with Indians. So they gave names to places. So yeah, Bear Lake was very pretty actually. Quite a long drive down through there. Back into Wyoming and Flaming Gorge National Recreation Area. Managed to get a shower at this place, which unfortunately was probably one of the only things I remember about it. It was alright, but it was a big recreational area, so there was a lot of boating going on and fishing going on. It was basically a place out in the kind of green area of the desert where a lot of Americans took their boats and hung out for a few weeks on holiday and went fishing. So even though it was very, very pretty, it was just one of those cool hangout spots away from the city where people went and chilled out, barbecued, drank beer, partied, made a bit of noise. So yeah, it was cool to see that. Apart from national parks and a couple of places I hadn't seen, places in the middle of nowhere where Americans went just to hang out and drink and get away from the town. So it was still very pretty. Flaming Gorge was very interesting, and I'm sure if you got out on a boat you'd probably see the gorge in a very different light. I'm fairly certain that Flaming Gorge has something to do with the rocks and how they probably lit up in sunshine. Anyway, down into Utah, skipped into Utah really, didn't really spend time there but drove through it. However, possibly went to possibly one of the most impressive places in terms of a tourist spot that I've been to so far, and that was Dinosaur National Monument. It borders Utah and Colorado. Haven't written about this place yet, but very complimentary. I'm not a big dinosaur fan, but I was hugely impressed by the way that they presented everything that was there. The landscape. It used to be a quarry. In fact, I think it still is. A quarry for dinosaur bones, not a quarry to mine or anything like that. They were excavating dinosaurs, and they've essentially just built the visitor centre in the building for the dinosaur quarry. Oh no, that's not true. They've built the visitor centre, but then they've built another building over the quarry where all the bones are, in order to preserve them. So they've essentially just built a building over what they quarried, but they've left it all there. And these bones are huge. Some of them are as long as my leg. Some of them are as big as me. 6 foot long. It was impressive. They found, I'm not sure it was Diplodocus. Again, I'm not a dino fan, but similar dinosaurs to a Diplodocus. They found complete spines and left them in the rock, so you can go and see them. It was a massive place. I mean, the fact that it's on this map and it goes over 2 states. You know, that's probably I don't know, a 40 or a 50-mile stretch of park. And it doesn't just kind of, you know, the park stops there, but the landscape carries on all the way up to almost to the Rockies. So all this stretch across here is it's probably going to be 200, 300 miles of dinosaur territory where the landscape hardly changes. Massively long drive with similar scenery, and KP had a long drive across that. Then eventually, I'll do this quickly, managed to get into Rocky Mountain National Park. I'll write about that. I've done videos in there. The landscape was just unbelievable. The road itself was pretty treacherous, very high up, no barriers, sheer drops, extremely impressive. Managed to see moose, managed to see yellow-bellied marmots, long-tailed weasels, elk, again walking straight through the campsite. Rocky Mountain National Park was an absolute gem. It's a very, very, very visited park because it's so close to Boulder and Denver and this city area here. But if you can go here and when it's quiet, I couldn't recommend it more. And then I've ended up in Boulder, just north of Denver. Been here a little while. It's pretty cool, chilled out. Boulder itself is really a quite, I wouldn't say it's a hippie town, but it's definitely a liberal town. A lot of money in Boulder. Mork and Mindy, it was filmed there. I walked past the house that it was filmed in the other day. But yeah, a lot of money. It's kind of the gateway, the entrance to a lot of the places up in the mountains, the ski resorts, and the outdoor pursuits centres in the mountains. So a lot of people come to Boulder, maybe for a few days before they go up into the hills, into the mountains, and do all their activities. So yeah, Boulder's pretty cool. Big student population as well. Obviously Colorado is pot friendly. It's legal. There are dispensaries around the towns. Yeah, it's a really liberal, I'd say hippie-ish. It used to be very, very hippie, but now it's just kind of, everyone's just wearing flip-flops and hanging out, drinking coffee and being all rather cool about it. But that's Boulder for you. Denver I've been to once. I got a good vibe in Denver, but it's definitely a big city. I only went there for an evening. I didn't even stay the night. And that's me, that's it. So the next video will be what I have planned. Long videos these, but hopefully you're enjoying the update. I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.